What's up guys, it's your weapon of choice, the Omni Blade here for you guys another video of sorts. In this video, I am going to be covering all the classes in Fire Emblem Fates Conquest version, or the Nohr Kingdom. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Kingdom of Nohr has more classes that are like traditional Fire Emblem games. You got your typical mercenaries, you got your cavaliers, dark mages, knights, and such. So a lot of the classes for the Conquest version of Fates aren't going to be that different from what you guys normally see from a traditional Fire Emblem game. However, there are a few changes I do want to make note of. Now, there are some things that have been changed from Awakening that I don't cover in this video. For example, Pair Up has been changed completely from Awakening and now has an entirely new system which has Pair Up split into an attack stance and a guard stance. I don't really want to explain all of that in this video, simply because it would take up a lot of my time. So I'm posting some videos in the description that I feel you should check out before you watch my video. That way you have a bit more prior knowledge of the game, and that way you aren't as confused when I mention some things that don't really make sense from past Fire Emblem games. Aside from that, I don't really have anything else to say. So sit back, relax, and I hope you guys enjoy my Fire Emblem Fates class analysis of the Conquest version. Kicking off this list, we have the standard rider class, the Cavalier. Cavaliers offer a decent ability, an old mechanic, and solid stats with all-around solid growth. So let's take a look at that old mechanic. A classic, but it has been made obsolete since Pair Up exists. At least, that's what the inexperienced player would say. Rescue functions like a reverse Pair Up in a sense. In older Fire Emblem games, Rescue allowed you to save units that you placed too far into the enemy line and let you save them at the cost of half your skill and speed. Now, what instead happens is that the unit will now adopt a guard stance and have the main unit suffer no stat drop. Now, you can be a bit more strategic with this ability than what seems at first. At face value, it seems like this ability is nothing more than a failsafe, and while you are right about that, you can use this in a very specific way. Say there's a nearby lance wielder equipped with a beast killer. Keep in mind, Rescue is an ability that can only be learned by Cavaliers, mounted units which are weak to beast killers. So what do? Well, you can send out your axe-wielding Wyvern Knights and have them eliminate the threat. But wait, now your axe wielder is up against an army of Myrmidons. What do? Have no fear. Marks the rescuing Paladin is here and ready with a silver lance to destroy the enemy Myrmidons. It seems pretty useful when you think of it like that, and I think it's a really interesting ability, especially when looking at the other ability that comes with Cavaliers, Outdoor Fighter. Outdoor Fighter ensures that Cavaliers always get a buff either from the terrain or the ability itself. I like this because it allows the players to be more strategic with their Cavalier placement. You now have a choice to make. Do you want to put your unit in the bare terrain for the 3 extra damage they can deal on an enemy unit? Or do you want to put it in a specific area that grants some extra hit, avoid, or health in order to ensure longevity? It really is up to you to decide what you do with these units, as they can be used in a myriad of different situations. Knights, the tanks of your army and the complement of Cavaliers. They trade in their speed for slight boosts in HP, strength, skill, and defense. While the Knight is a difficult class to master because of their poor mobility, they take physical hits like a sponge. Just make sure these units are nowhere near mages when they attack, or else they will die instantly. What helps Knights tank even better is their standard defense +2 ability, which offers a nice early game boost, but their other ability, which is the polar opposite of Outdoor Fighter, Indoor Fighter, gives Knights somewhat of a double-edged blade to their weapons. This ability gives Knights access to the hit and avoid boost that an area might give them, alongside 3 extra points of damage reduction. The trade-off is that if Knights are left alone in a bare tile, they get absolutely nothing. The Knight will always be a staple of Fire Emblem, and it will be a reliable wall in Fates as you keep them nearby pillar areas where they can get hit, avoid boosts, alongside that nice damage reduction. All in all, a solid unit, and I really look forward to using it. Keeping the trend of units with godly attack stats going, it's time to talk about the beastly axe wielders, Fighters. Starting off with abilities, these guys get HP +5, which is decent, and Roundhouse, which is a nerfed version of Gamble, as instead of -5 hit for +10 crit, it's a straight swap of 10 for 10, meaning that you now take a minus 10 hit in accuracy for a plus 10 boost in critical. I don't really find Roundhouse all that good early game, as reduced accuracy coupled with the fact that axes are low accuracy weapons is just asking for misses. But this unit in and of itself is a great risk-reward system since they have high skill and speed growth, which when coupled with Roundhouse allows for some clutch criticals, especially since that speed might give them a precious double strike. With regards to the growths I didn't talk about, HP, good. Magic, bad. Defense and resistance, also bad. Got all that? Okay, good. Moving on now. Mercenaries are very different units now since weapon durability has been taken out of the game. So how are they different? Are they better? No, not at all. Is took out the mechanic that made mercenaries such great units in the first place. I know mercenaries have good strength and defense and even better skill and speed, but Arms Thrift is what defined mercenaries. Arms Thrift ended up getting replaced with the poor man's renewal, Stubbornness, an ability that can heal 20% of your max HP at the start of your turn, luck percent of the time. This change was probably made so that Nohr, which does not have access to the classic Myrmidon class, has a decent replacement at least. As for the other replaced ability, Patient Assurance is just the damage version of Patience, as Patient Assurance has the user deal 3 extra damage if they are under attack. This makes mercenaries fairly good at handling onslaughts as they have decent HP and defense, and their good strength and skill lets them deal heavy damage consistently. Maybe if their skill is combined with a killer weapon, they could become a legitimate replacement for Myrmidons. While these hired hands suffered quite the nerf, they're still pretty good units all things considered, and I'm just kind of upset that weapon durability is out of the game because it doesn't really make any sense to me personally. This Thief Archer hybrid class is an odd mix, but not too ludicrous, as the Assassin class in previous games gained the ability to use bows when promoted from a Thief/Myrmidon. But since Outlaws can only attack with bows, this does limit their options as they must be at a distance to attack. However, this might be a good thing for Outlaws as they have sinful HP and defense. Another odd quirk about this Thief replacement is that they have good resistance for some reason. I never really understood why Thieves had good resistance in the first place, but hey, I'm not complaining as it makes these units virtually magic retardant. Anyways, the classic Lock Touch of Thieves will certainly make this class an essential member on the team if you want to loot the goods of the Hoshido, and heck, who wouldn't want movement +1 on a unit that is meant to be mobile and elusive? The Wyvern Rider is a classic mountain unit that constantly proves to be a force of mass destruction in every Fire Emblem game because of their powerful strength which fighters can respect, and their high defenses that knights can admire. As for the flaws of Wyvern Riders, luck and resistance, these are the two stats that I personally feel are the least important in any Fire Emblem game. With that being said, I think these units are going to be amazing as they also have okay speed and skill. In terms of abilities, Strength +2 still lingers from Awakening, but their other ability, Tantivy? You know, the one with the blue circle and a horse ring through it? The one that granted hit and avoid +10 if there were no allies within a 3-tile radius? That one? No? Don't remember it? Good, because it has replaced that ability with Cut Through, an ability that gives you the command prompt to switch places with the enemy unit you just battled. Now, this may sound a bit weird at first, but let's think about it. Wyvern Riders have incredible strength and defense, as I've already mentioned. So thanks to Cut Through, you can attack an enemy unit that's giving you some trouble, have them switch places with your current Wyvern Rider, then have your allies pound on them as they obliterate them to nothing. They will be completely exposed and without ally support, so there's nothing stopping you from exposing these guys and letting a weaker unit take the experience that they need. The only problem with this strategy is that you have to beware of mages, especially ones with wind magic, as they will cut through Wyvern Riders faster than a butcher cuts through meat. But even still, I wouldn't be too worried about that, because if the knights can be the walls of the Nohr, then Wyvern Riders are going to be the freaking tanks. Dark Mages were one of the greatest units in Awakening. They had crazy high magic and were ridiculously tanky. In this game, however, Intelligent Systems seems to have taken note of the fact that Dark Mages were beyond broken in the last game, and it looks like they gave them quite the nerf this time around. I say this because of their now below average defense and their newfound growth in resistance. However, this makes sense seeing that there are no regular mages on the Nohrian side, so it is needed to give them a regular mage. And aside from magic and resistance, there is nothing that Dark Mages have to offer. And I know, mages are good for magic and resistance, but there is literally nothing else that a Dark Mage has. At least there is no real flaw here. Well, aside from their skill, which rivals the pathetic magic of Cavaliers in terms of mediocrity. Now, there has been an ability change since Awakening. Bind, which went under the name Hex in Awakening, reduces the avoid of adjacent enemies by 20 now instead of 15, so it looks like they gave it a slight buff. Here's the problem with that though. Since Dark Mages don't have the same defenses as they did in Awakening, there's no point in trying to lower your opponent's evasion if you can't take a hit in the first place. It's why I don't really like this ability that much. And then there's the second ability, which has been completely changed from Awakening, which is Devilish Wind. This ability causes all enemies in a 2-tile radius to take 2 extra magic damage. These abilities seem really contradictory to me, as one requires you to be up close and personal in order to make use of it, while the other allows you to be at a distance and still receive its benefits. Honestly, I know that Iz was trying to balance Dark Mages because they were, like I said, insanely broken in the last game, but I don't think they did a good job balancing them out. I mean, aside from their magic stats, there's no real boon that Dark Mages have. Everything is just so mediocre or subpar that it really is disappointing to see one of my favorite classes fall from grace. But here's to hoping that Sorcerers make them better? The healers of the Nohr, the Rod Knights really only serve one purpose. Well, healing. I don't really know what else to say here since, you know, they can't attack. Strength? Who cares? It could be 0 for all it matters, and nothing would change. Defense? Virtually non-existent with that growth rate. Resistance? I mean, it's okay, but they can take probably 2 hits at best because of their bad HP. Their magic isn't even that good when you look at it. I mean, the healer unit doesn't have magic that caps over 20? Really? All they have going for them is their skill, which is good, so they might be able to dodge 1 attack? You just have to hope it's the first attack they dodge though. Their abilities are just Resistance +2 and Democile or Distinguished Sun. So it's just a nerf version of Voice of Peace. If you saw my Corrin and Ozra analysis, you would know what those abilities do. But these abilities only work for the opposite gender. Now, while Tumblr will rain politically correct comments on how this game forces the idea of a tyrannical cis-normative society and oppresses freedom because gender-neutral units don't benefit from the ability or something. Oh wait, there's no gender-neutral units in the game? Well, I'm gonna get so mad and stop. This was the class that was originally the Traudabor, which was originally a female-only class. Now it exists for both genders. I mean, there's even gay marriage in the game for crying out loud. Come on, baby steps, people, baby steps. And let's just accept the fact that we now have decent healers that are not gender exclusive now. Either way, Rod Knights are healers. There is nothing else for me to say here. Moving on. Tagwell, Maniket, the Lagoos, or whatever else you want to call these guys, these units are the Anthropomorphs of the Nohr. These units are basically werewolf people. I mean, you can see them on the screen for crying out loud. They're werewolves, and that is awesome. Not only do these units have good HP, strength, speed, and defense, emphasis on the good HP and strength there, they also have some good abilities. These guys, of course, get the standard ones you would expect since they're the Transformers of the game, for lack of a better word, but they're helpful. Odd Rhythm is kind of the extreme I was looking for in this game. Odd Rhythm in Fates allows these beasts to deal 4 extra damage on odd numbered turns. Now that is better than the crappy 2 and 3 damage we've been seeing from all the other abilities thus far. Why is this good? Well, these units are pretty quick. They're basically getting +8 damage when you have them target slow units on an odd numbered turn. But wait, don't the Hoshido have a lot of fast flyer units you're saying? No need to worry. You also have Beastbane in order to take them out. Going up against a Pegasus warrior with speed that matches one of your Garou? No need to worry. Make sure they have this ability and they will be making hats of the feathers of these fallen Pegasi faster than you can say Twilight. So I do like this class. Absolutely. I have faith in these units and I definitely see them doing great things, especially when they get promoted. Yeah, the Transforming Beast unit has a promotion in this game, and that's pretty awesome. So let's start off advanced classes with the Paladin class. When comparing the growth rates of the Paladin to its base class, they're virtually identical aside from the +5 resistance they gain. However, these stat caps are very underwhelming. There is no stat above 32 as you can see, but the lowest useful stat is 30, so you can't complain too much. This is as vanilla as stats get in these advanced classes, and I can guarantee there are more interesting stat builds further down the road. As for abilities, they remain intact if you've played Awakening. Aegis is basically the same, as damage taken from bows, magic, kunais, dragonstones, breath attacks, and boulder attacks, whatever the heck those last two are halved and has a skill % chance of triggering. Then there's Defender, which is just a nice buff of +1 to all of your stats if you use Rescue/Pair Up. All in all, this is a fairly standard class. Now we have the Great Knight, the units that always save your ass in the beginning of games, then run out of utility once the mid-late game approaches. Well, after 2 games and 1 godly quote, "Pick a god and pray," I think the Great Knights have finally found their stride. Great Knights are the love child of a general and a paladin. I mean, look at these stats. 35 max strength, 37 max defense, and each comes with a bolstering growth of 20. And they have high mobility? That's pretty good all things considered. However, if you have played a Fire Emblem game with these units in them, you know that they do have a few glaring weaknesses as shown by their stats. First, let's talk about their resistance. It's bad. And I mean bad. Mages can have a field day with Great Knights because of their awful growths in resistance. And then there's your second flaw, their speed. Great Knights simply don't have the speed to double enemy units, and that cripples them in the late game. While these stats are rather low, Great Knights seem to lean more towards their tankiness as a general, and that can be seen through their new ability. First off, yes, Luna is still here, and it still has the enemy's defense and resistance based on what stat the player uses, and has a trigger rate equal to the user's skill. Now, instead of Dual Guard Plus, which is now obsolete given the mechanics of Fate, the Great Knight now has Diamond Strike. This ability really emphasizes the fact that Great Knights are offensive units, and this ability reduces the physical damage that a user would take by 10 if the unit triggers battle. So, like I said, magic damage will still destroy these units, but would you ever send these guys against a mage that you didn't have a guaranteed one-shot against in the first place? Anyways, this insane ability can come in very handy, as a Great Knight can tank a hit better than any other unit in the game, as no other class can reduce their damage by such a large amount. Couple this with abilities like Heathen Princess and Voice of Peace, and the Great Knight could be a unit that might shine in the late game. Now, Great Knights can 1v1 powerful bosses, lift tell the tale, and truly force their enemies to pick a god and pray. What happens when you take the ridiculous HP, strength, and defensive knights and bestow these stats with better HP growth onto a unit? Well, you get the general class, that's what. Generals have some of the best stats in the game and even have a defense that caps at 40. This is one of the few classes that even has a 40 stat cap, so you know this unit has top tier defense. What's also interesting is the decent resistance. For a class that is known for its high defense to also have okay resistance as well, means that generals will be near invincible. Now you might think that a general's low speed will make them susceptible to double hits. Nope! Generals now have this ability called Defensive Formation. Instead of the weak rally defense that generals had in Awakening, this ability makes it so that neither the user nor the enemy unit can double attack. This is fantastic for generals as their poor speed is now negated with this ability and they can shine with their massive defensive stats and deal hefty damage with their mighty attack. And then who can forget Pavis, the skill that triggers skill percent of the time and halves damage from swords, axes, lances, beast stones, and now monsters and puppets as well. Now it's time for me to get into the first Nohr S rank weapon class that I can talk about, Berserkers. Berserkers have the best strength in the game, bar none. Look at that strength. It's freaking 40! These units are the pinnacle of power, and that growth rate basically guarantees good, consistent growth throughout the rest of the game. But on the other hand, Berserkers have growth rates in luck, defense, and resistance of 0. Seriously, look at these growths. They are actually worthless. Even as fighters, Berserkers gain 0 resistance, so these units are very susceptible to magic. You know how I said fighters are a good risk-reward class? Well, take that system, double both the risk and the reward, and you have Berserkers in a nutshell. These units can cleave enemies in two, but they get cut just as easily. As for their abilities, there's nothing really special here. Rally skills aren't really something I care for, so rally strength is lost on me, as I wish they could get a skill that boosts their evasion instead. But Axe Fair is nice, as it is a guaranteed 5 extra damage since Berserkers can only use axes. Regardless of how simple these units appear at face value, Berserkers are looking like they'll be plenty of fun to use in Fates. There really isn't anything new to say about heroes. Heroes were great units before, and heroes are still great units with pleasing strength, defense, and speed growth, and this is enough to make me forget about the loss of Arms Thrift. Thankfully, this class doesn't have a major flaw, although that resistance is a bit lacking. Thankfully, this class retains its great abilities from the last game, Soul and Axebreaker. Combine Axebreaker with swords, and all axe-wielding opponents will be unable to touch heroes. And of course, Soul is a fantastic ability that heals half the damage you just dealt, and it triggers skill percent of the time. And, given the great skill of heroes, you can expect to see this ability proc quite a bit. I really shouldn't complain too much, since heroes are still good units, and I'll definitely be using a few in my save files of Fates. Okay, so when I did my research on this class, I was very confused to say the least. Given my experience from Awakening, I found Bow Knights to be one of the worst units in the game. If these stats are any indication, you could probably tell why I don't like these units. You know how I said earlier that Paladins were very balanced units? So are Bow Knights, but instead of being well-rounded like a Paladin, Bow Knights have below average strength, defense, and skill, have average speed, luck, and resistance, and have okay HP. The assets, if you want to call those average stats assets, of Bow Knights include 2 of the stats I don't care about in this game, leaving them with just mediocre speed. Another reason I don't like these units is because of how their access to swords doesn't really help them. This doesn't give them any more utility. If they use swords, they can attack from a distance. But if they use bows, they can attack what's in front of them. Then there's the fact that they're on a mount now. Okay, they have more mobility, sure, but now they have the additional weakness from Beastbane and Beast Killers. However, most of my dislike for these units stems from the fact that I played Awakening. And in Awakening, Bow Knights couldn't use longbows, which made them completely inferior to snipers, which had better strength, defense, and skill. Now that I've played Radiant Dawn, however, I still don't see why people like these units so much. Bow Knights in my mind are easily outclassed by either the aforementioned heroes, but with the new weapons triangle in Fates, Bow Knights are slightly buffed, as bows now have an advantage over lances and hidden weapons. Then again, Bow Knights still have terrible abilities, as Kunai Breaker, which is the replacement for Bow Breaker in this game, is good, I guess, since these units can exterminate ninjas, but Rally skill is just pointless. The new Trickster class. The Adventurer functions almost identically to the Trickster we all knew and hated in past games. This new class has Lucky 7, which grants hit and avoid plus 20 for the first 7 turns, so that's useful. And this class gets Pass from the Assassin class in previous games, which allows adventurers to pass through tiles occupied by enemy units. While the stat growths remain basically the same as the Outlaw, can someone explain why the magic stat of these guys is higher than their strength? Even though I just destroyed them in the last segment, I might actually end up using bow knights in this game because this makes no damn sense. This stupid bow gimmick is really annoying me now. Why would I want a pseudo sniper with atrocious skill and strength? What's worse is that the only other options for healers on the north side are Rod Knights and their promotion. With access to Physic, the adventurer is probably going to be an essential healer that everyone relies on, but I don't understand why this is the path Iz ended up taking, because nah, goddammit, why can't these units just use swords? Wyvern Lords are just a more powerful version of Wyvern Riders, so I don't have a lot to say about this class, but it is a good class. Rally defense has been moved onto the Wyvern Lord, which doesn't really add much considering the replaceability was Quick Burn, which gave the user hit and avoid plus 15 at the start of battle, but took -1 hit and avoid after each turn. So yeah, not really missing much there. Swordbreaker doesn't really do much considering that Wyvern Lords have access to lances, but it could be useful if an onslaught of samurai go attack you after you use your axe and didn't get the chance to switch weapons afterwards. Overall, these units are just the pure power of the Wyvern Knight, but beefed up and given more utility. Yes! I can finally talk about this revived class. With Revenant Knights replacing the bland and basic Griffin Riders in Awakening, this class is looking like it might be one of the most powerful units in the game. This class offers okay strength and magic stats, yet boasts balanced defense and resistance. The only real flaws in this class are the low skill and speed stats, but they aren't awful, so it isn't a major flaw. The true draw to this class are the phenomenal abilities that complement it so well. Deadly Breath reduces the HP of all enemies in a 2-tile radius by 20% after the user triggers a battle. This ability makes Revenant Knights great offensive lead units that can soften up nearby enemies and could lead to some inventive strategies. Then there's a second ability, Overbearing, or as I like to call it, Footbreaker, since it deals 5+ damage to anything that isn't on a mount, which is most units on the Hoshido side. Only Pegasus warriors will be immune to this ability, which gives Revenant Knights a huge boon. Let's also not forget the fact that Revenant Knights can attack with tomes, giving these already beastly units some variety as they can target a unit's defense or resistance. The only other thing I can comment on here is that I hope my fears of the Revenant Knight aren't realized. This class has very balanced stat caps, just like the Bow Knight and Adventurer. I mean, the highest stat this class gets caps at 31, but 3 stats cap at that point, so it's like a Paladin in some ways. There's also the fact that the lowest stat of this class, Luck, caps in at 25, but it's luck for Christ's sake, I don't care about that stat. Otherwise, Speed is the true loser, coming in at a lackluster 27. This was a problem I often found in Awakening. Certain classes like the War Monk or Dark Knight would be very balanced, but that was their main flaw. These classes were, as I like to say, too balanced for their own good. Sure, those classes didn't lack in any one specific area, but they didn't have any one asset that made them stand out. Sure, mages have horrible defense, but they make up for it with high magic. A good War Monk might have decent resistance, but it doesn't have the damage output it needs in order to be a powerful unit like a Sorcerer or an Assassin. And given how stats and fates are low compared to Awakening, and how it resembles more like traditional Fire Emblem games, I hope that this class doesn't suffer from its balance, but that it becomes a great asset to your team because of said balance. Looking back on what I said about my hopes on Sorcerers being good, let me start off with this question. Did Sorcerers get the short end of the stick? The answer is a painful yes. I mean, look at these growth rates. HP, 0. Skill, 0. Luck, 0. Defense, freaking 5. This is what sorcerers have been reduced to. Their max stats aren't even that good. Only 35 max magic for a class with an S rank in tomes? Come on, Berserker's got a 40 stat cap, why can't these guys? Especially since, again, their resistance is their only other selling point. Every other stat these guys have is just sad. 29 defense, 29 speed, 26 skill? This class looks like it took out a loan of power and awakening, then filed for bankruptcy in this game. The only real redeeming quality in the Sorcerer is the new ability it got. Instead of having Tomebreaker like in Awakening, they now have Bowbreaker. I guess this is helpful now because sorcerers can dodge archers, as their high skill would make it very easy for them to pick off dark mages since they can't really tank anymore. Their other ability, Vengeance, is still there, and it has a trigger rate of 1.5 times your skill, but whoever actually used this ability before? Nosferatu just made it pointless because we were going to heal all the damage back anyways. It really is sad to see such a potent class fall from such a high standing in previous games. Okay, now let's take a look at Dark Knights and wonder, why is this class actually better than the Sorcerer? I mean, the stats of the Dark Knight are actually respectable, as they nearly mirror the stats of the Revenant Knight. Dark Knights have good strength and magic, and great defense and resistance, and they're also both lacking in skill and speed. I'm not going to question this logic, but I'll take it. Now, let's compare the Dark Knight to the Sorcerer. Well, the Sorcerer wins in terms of magic, speed, and resistance, but here's the problem with that. First off, the Sorcerer doesn't have the insane amounts of magic that it should have, their speed is okay at best, and resistance really isn't a stat you need to worry about because the majority of the enemy units are typically going to deal physical damage or focus on your defense, not your resistance. So in comparison, the Dark Knight is better because of the fact that they can use swords and tomes with decent proficiency, since both of their offensive stats aren't that bad. Dark Knights also have balanced defenses, and better stat growth in general compared to Sorcerers. Not yet convinced that Dark Knights are better? You probably will be after I remind you about the amazing ability that Dark Knights get, Life Taker. For those of you who don't know, Life Taker is a nifty little ability that lets the user heal half of their max HP after they defeat an enemy. Oh, and instead of that worthless slow burn they had before in Awakening, they now have Magic Seal, which lowers their opponent's magic by 6 after a battle. But who cares about that when you can outright kill the dastard and heal a proverbial crap ton of HP? So, are sorcerers still looking like the dominant class now? The new Valkyrie, Strategist. I mean, it's an okay class, I guess. The Strategist is still your main healer. Their tome ranking is not that good, as they only get good, not great, or spectacular magic at best to defend themselves with. And that isn't even all that helpful since their stats are so low. Their best stat is luck, followed by resistance. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. The reason I say their luck is better than magic, even though the stat caps are the same, is because the growth for the luck stat is higher. Sure, strategists have nice magic, but they don't really have the tools to use it. Their abilities aren't that good either. Rally Resistance is Rally Resistance, and Battle Command is just Demozile or Distinguished Son, but for all genders this time. Again, another class that's too balanced, and if one of the classes were to suffer greatly from this, I feel it'll definitely be the Strategist. This is definitely an interesting class to say the least, and that's for a few reasons. First off, this is one of the few classes that has an S rank weapon, albeit staves aren't really weapons, and a secondary weapon, kunai. I'm just gonna call hidden weapons kunai because it's easier, okay? I mean, it's called kunai breaker and not hidden weapon breaker for a reason. Even though the weapon in the little icon is a shuriken and not a kunai, and I'm gonna shut up now because my inner weeb is showing. Either way, let's talk about the actual class now. So regardless of what you do with the Rod Knights, they become healers. Unless there's a kunai that deals damage based on magic, which probably does exist in Fates, you won't be dealing much damage with these guys. Their stats are even more balanced than, say, those of the Revenant Knight, which I'm going to keep making comparisons to because I like that class, in case you couldn't tell already. The lowest stat here is Strength, sadly, and the highest stats are Skill and Speed, which max out at 33. I don't really see anything wrong with this per se because of the balanced growth rates of these units. Sadly, Maids and Butlers do lack in defense, so that's a bit of a con for them. The abilities for this class, however, are incredibly useful. Maids and Butlers get the ability Servant's Joy, which triggers whenever these units heal another unit. Basically, if Jacob were to heal Corin by, say, 20 HP, Jacob would also heal 20 HP. This ability is amazing because Maids and Butlers wouldn't even need to attack. They could just heal, restore their own HP, then deal nice chip damage whenever enemies inevitably tried to attack them. The other ability that these loyal servants get is Tomebreaker. I don't know why they got it over Sorcerers or Strategists, but they did! I really do feel that even though this unit is very balanced stat-wise, I have the same hopes for this class that I do the Revenant Knight, and the same fears for it as well. The promotion of the Garou, and that is all I will call it because there is no way you could make me pronounce this class's name correctly, even if my life depended on it. Either way, the Super Werewolf class is as savage as ever since it has great strength and solid speed and defense. These balanced stats work for this class since stones boost their other stats when they're equipped, giving the Beast classes some potential to be incredibly overpowered. From what I've seen, this mechanic will turn better than ever as there was an item I saw in my research called a Guard Beast Stone. It does exactly what you would expect it to do, boost the user's defensive stats more than a regular Beast Stone. So it's nice to see the successors of the Tagwell get a buff. And then the abilities. Oh boy. Odd Cry heals 40% of your max HP on odd numbered turns, so mercenaries can go eat their hearts out. And then there's Four Fangs, which works like Deadly Breath, but only on the single attack unit, which is a bit disappointing. Seriously, why couldn't the Beast classes work like this in all past Fire Emblem games? Well, that's my analysis on all the classes in Fire Emblem Fates. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, as I put a lot of effort into it, and I had to go through hoops, mountains, and all that shebang in order to get this video out to you guys on time. I'm sorry I don't have the Hoshido class analysis done, but for me to get both of them out by December 25th was a bit of an obstacle, as I have several other things on my plate still. I'm hoping to get it out before Faith releases, that's for sure, but maybe you can give me some time, like, I don't know, January, middle of the road of that month. If you guys could just be patient with me, I'll definitely get it out to you guys. And if you did like what I gave to you guys, please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, guys, I'm out of here.